Have you ever wondered when you're having a bad day, you typically are not in the mood to do anything. So you're usually tired and you can't discipline yourself to do what you want to do for the day because you woke up having a bad day and maybe some incident happened and you just don't end up having a great start to the day and that ends up ruining your entire day. So now think about this. You're having that bad day, but then on that same day, you realize that you have an interview or you have a new class to attend or you have to meet a new person. But because of that, adding on to your bad day, now you have to show your good side. Because you have to do set that important event, you have to show your good side now. And now you're getting anxious because you want to make a good first impression. And it's hard to do that now because of the way you started your day. So this begs the question, how do you make that good first impression out of the bad circumstance? And why should we make a good impression? Even when we see many people, we see business owners, the best of professions, they always try to make a good first impression. And how do the best of people do it? Why? What's good, everyone? This is your host, Haris Fakar, and we're finally back with another episode. Yeah, it's been a while, but now we're gonna be back on track. So I'm actually gonna come back with a new series, and it's gonna be called Courageous Notion. I kind of already made an episode earlier this year about it, but now I'm gonna make this a full-on series because the last episode, which if you haven't checked out, is called "These Steps Will Help You Achieve Anything." Though that episode blew up and I'm more encouraged to do these types of episodes. And if you don't know what Courageous Notion is, a series where I will be talking about my thoughts and advice to help people strive to be their full potential. Whichever skills you want to improve, I'm here to help based on my personal experiences and my research. So since you're here, subscribe to this podcast, follow the social media that is listed down below, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. If you're also here, make sure you check out my previous content and share it with others who may be interested with the topic or with any other topic you see me posting. So without further ado, let's start talking about today's topic. And from listening to the intro, you're most likely thinking about how to make that good first impression, which is what today's topic is about. And the main thing is that we really care about showing people our better side when there is a first encounter. And why is it so important? And how can we always ensure it? And how much does it really matter to humans? So, like, before we dive deep into some of these questions, we need to look at the root cause, meaning what is a first impression? So, a first impression is a psychological event when one person first encounters another person. And so, let's say you meet me for the first time. You meeting me will form a mental image of me, and that will typically result in a positive or negative evaluation. An example is, imagine you're walking around, you see a man running to you, and he hands you $1. And when you see that person, you automatically think good about the person based on the body language, act, and the kindness that man did. You can easily see that man as a nice individual for lending you $1 and running up to you randomly, just giving you $1. And from that day, you'll probably think of that person as the man that gave you $1. And that is known as a first impression. So the general basis of first impressions people tend to make is that it's very crucial. First impressions are really crucial because they can either make or break an opportunity. It's human nature to make a judgment about someone when you first meet them. However, did you know that people can formulate an opinion about you in less than 20 seconds? And that's actually pretty rough because 20 seconds, you kind of have to show the best version of yourself who you are. So, but the thing is, we are humans. We are hardwired to make snap decisions about others in a quick, non-reflective way. And we are all different because we were raised differently, have different values, educations, we come from different backgrounds, and sometimes we even hold our own prejudices. And that's why we make a snap judgment about someone when we first meet them based on appearance, accent, tone of voice, and what that person says. So to sum that all up, like when we're meeting someone, you should show the best version of yourself. Be who you are, show a good side of you. And when you meet someone, you shouldn't judge too quick about them. However, humans have this way where they can judge someone pretty quickly. However, the best thing to do is not to judge someone because there's always more to the picture. And for this reason, it's vital that your first impression is always the best one. If you don't show a really good side of you, then you don't really have a second to waste. And while sadly, you can't make everyone like you, and there are some simple steps that you can take to make sure your first impression is your best impression. However, you can't make everyone like you, and if that is the case, then you have to move on with that because you may be finding something wrong in another person, or it wouldn't be the end of the world. But since I'm talking about making good first impressions, why is this so important? Why is it important that we make a good first impression? And the reason here is simple. It's almost impossible to make every person you ever meet like you. And that's just a part of life. Sometimes we're just too different from one another and we don't get on. And that's fine. I've mentioned this earlier. But it will make a difference when you consciously bring your best self to make a very good first impression, which can create a lot of opportunities, make new connections, and open a lot of doors for you. And not only can you make friends and grow your network, you can also be offered a great opportunity as a result. So like a job offer and chance to meet someone again, a business proposition. In terms of business, making a lasting first impression can help you make a sale or on board with a new client. That's more of the business aspect to it. But in terms of friend, you could have a very, very lifelong relationship. And now that you know why it's important, so how can you ensure? How can you ensure that you always make a good impression? And as I said before, people will always make a judgment on you based on your appearance, your tone of voice, and what you say to them. And with this in mind, there are some simple steps you can follow to ensure your first impression is always your best. And I have 6 steps for you to take note on. So number 1, always dress for the occasion, whether it's an interview, business meeting, meeting someone. Ensure that you're showing the best version of yourself. Give it some thought, dress appropriately for the occasion. And if you look good, you'll feel good as well. So number 1, dress for the occasion. Number 2, be polite, no matter what circumstance. There is no reason to be rude to someone, even if they don't treat you with the same respect. Be with the best version of yourself and inspire. You can always speak the truth with compassion. And number 3, authenticity. This is what like a really great mindset I actually love to encounter is being authentic kind of makes me think if someone doesn't like me for who I am, it's better that way from than me trying to be someone that they like. Because as I said earlier, you may not impress everyone you encounter, and that's okay. But whether it's a formal handshake or a relaxed hug, being authentic and making a friendly, positive entrance will leave a lasting impression. And number 4, smile. This might be kind of obvious, but a smile will always go a long way as when someone sees a smile, it looks to be inviting and approachable because no matter where you are and what you're wearing, a genuine smile is always the best accessory. When someone sees a smile, psychologically, someone is compelled to look at them and think positive about that person. And number 5, tailor your tone. It's important to be able to read a situation and tailor your tone of voice and language accordingly. Use your experience, intuition, and common sense to share your best self for the occasion. And number 6, last one, communicate in a respectful manner. So communication is key because of course you're not going to use bad language and you're not going to ignore someone when something goes wrong. When you listen carefully, respond kindly to others, even if you disagree with them, it helps express your opinions and thoughts and understand other people's perspective, and that will eventually make you lead to build strong relationships and solving problems. And it's all about being active, just listening and speaking. So communicating in a respectful manner helps from creating a good first impression to a much greater one. So the 6 steps that can ensure you to make a great first impression. So it's number 1, always dress for the occasion. Number 2, be polite. Number 3, authenticity. Number 4, smile. Number 5, tailor your tone. And number 6, communicate in a respectful manner. So now that we know why they matter and how can we ensure it, and now you're probably extra careful about how you come across the next time you have a job interview or you meet someone. And now you're thinking, do first impressions really matter for experiencing having experience of a lifetime? Or if it doesn't go well the first time, will it go well the second time? You're probably thinking many questions similar along those lines. In my opinion, first impressions are very crucial to when you're meeting, of course, in a job interview, when it's an important event. So job interview, business proposition. However, it's not so important for experiences. And according to recent research, while we judge people based on the few moments we encounter them, we actually judge experiences based on the final moments. So for example, let's say you go to a place that's unfamiliar to you. You go to some random country, you don't know the language, it's unfamiliar, you're uncomfortable, and you look for hotels to stay in the night. So you check your phone and you've tried to find that the closest hotel is a 3-star hotel. And you check out the place, it has decent decor, decent architecture, and you probably will go in and not think too much about the service and management. However, whenever you go in, it is seems like the best hotel you stayed at. You are welcome to a room that has great view, comfy bed, free drinks. And then the more you stay at the hotel, each day it gets better. So although the first impression of that hotel wasn't great, the experiences was once of a lifetime. And this isn't just for when we judge, even when we judge people too. You may think before you meet a person, you might hear some bad things about them. However, when you actually meet the person, they may not be too bad at all. And this also seems to show that while humans remember people by first impressions, we don't really remember experiences the same way. And with experiences, we seem to remember the peak moments and how they end. And since I've been blabbering about okay, how do we ensure it? What is a good first impression? And what the experience is. So here's the tricky part. Because I've been talking about first impressions, how valuable they are, and here I've been talking about the first impressions and how they do not matter when remembering experiences. Even at times, it's possible you play every card right and however now make a good first impression. So earlier I did say you could be having the question like, okay, if we had a bad first impression, is there a way to correct it? And the good news is impressions evolve over time. You may not get a second chance to make a first impression, but you can create an opportunity to correct one. And here are actually 5 ways to do that. So number 1, realize that initial impression was just a beginning. We've all changed our opinion about someone longer than we know them for anyone we meet. Consider a colleague that you initially thought was not a great person when you worked with them or when you spoke with them, but after sharing a project, you realize you had similarities with that person, you bond over certain things. Sometimes when you look at the initial impression, it wasn't the best thing in the world. However, over time, you've gotten to know them and it took time to make that opportunity. So this is the thing. If we look at first impressions as a make or break opportunity, then it's easy to make excuses for not trying to correct them. So instead, consider that impressions continuously evolve with multiple touch points. So if you want someone to get to know the real you, then put yourself in front of them. Ask the person to lunch or volunteer to help them by witnessing your skills and personality over a longer period of time. And that way, their perception of you can grow. So that's 1, realizing that the initial impression was just the beginning. Number 2, remember that repeated small interactions build trust the fastest. So a Harvard study actually revealed that it typically takes 8 subsequent positive encounters to change another person's negative opinion of you. So be persistent and further small, predictable interactions increase trust greater than just a one-time event. Biggest thing to focus on is just to demonstrate your value over an extended period of time. Strive to be consistent, follow up and follow through. Think about how you can build your perception of yourself on other people. Number 3, ask for a chance to correct. Being straightforward can help minimize misunderstandings and reframe the discussion. Consider simply saying, I feel like we got off on the wrong foot. That's number 3. Ask for a chance to correct. Number 4, remind the other person how open-minded the person is. So many people work hard to be open-minded and fair in their interactions with others. Research shows that when you remind someone of their fairness, they will work to live up to that assessment. So practically speaking, this means that after an odd first interaction, you can send a follow-up email or compliment the other person on their open-mindedness or fairness of evaluating people, or recognize how their perception of other people must be a real asset in their job. So reminding the other person of how great they are, touch on a good quality of theirs, will help them remember to be more open-minded in their perceptions of you. So that's number 4. And then the last step, ask for advice on anything. So according to Wharton professor Adam Grant, asking advice is a smart way to be influential. And Grant discusses many ways on how people negotiated with sales. The biggest thing he said was asking for advice encouraged greater cooperation and information sharing, turning a potentially contentious negotiation into a win-win deal. Studies demonstrate that across the manufacturing, financial services, insurance, and pharmaceutical industries, seeking advice is among the most effective ways to influence peers, superiors, and subordinates. That's what Grant writes. So if you feel that you didn't make a positive impression, follow up and ask the person for advice on some of the work. And this also allows you to get in front of that person again and make a new impression. And when you ask for advice, you suddenly have a good connection there, because when you ask for advice, it shows that you want to build yourself and you want to improve on what went wrong the first time. So that can be given as a good thing. So the 5 steps I reviewed were: number 1, realizing that the initial impression was the beginning. Number 2, remember that repeated small interactions build the trust. Number 3, ask a chance to correct. Number 4, remind the person of a good quality they have. Number 5, ask for advice. So now that I've said about why first impressions matter, why they're crucial, how to ensure it, and how to correct one, now I'm going to give my initial thoughts on all of this, because this is based on what I researched, and I'm going to bring more of a personal touch into this. So in my opinion, first impressions matter when there's an importance of you trying to connect with people, or an interview, or teacher, or people when you meet for the first time. Whichever the case is important, it will be important to keep a great first impression to expect greater things in the future. And even for this podcast, the fact that you're listening to this is because you had a great first impression from me. Either you listened to this episode and got engaged, or you listened to a previous episode and got engaged, you want to hear more of me, and you vice versa. There's many reasons why you were engaged to this podcast. And this idea stays the same. You had a great first impression of this podcast, so you would want to listen more in the future. And even when you're trying to start a business or sell products, you guys, everyone knows the biggest lesson in sales is your first impression. The way people are engaged within the few moments is how the experiences are remembered from all the first impressions. In order to keep a great one, the key thing is to just be confident and authentic. And what this entire episode was all about just showed how to create a great first impression and how to correct it if you want to make a better one. Another thought that just comes through my mind is, when a matter is important, it is important to keep a good first impression. However, when a matter is based on experiences and judging, first, we can't judge many people based on their first impressions. And there's always more to the picture. It is always difficult to understand others of how people work, because they might not leave a good impression however they could in the future, given the opportunity. And the opposite effect can happen as well. Advice I will give before I close this off is always show your best self to everyone in public. Even if there are some clashes between people, it's always best to be professional based on whichever circumstance. And you never know what kind of small act you can do can create a massive opportunity. And even if it is missed, always look forward for another chance to come. Psychologists at Yale University, University of Oxford, and big schools around the world did a new study that actually found humans are naturally forgiving beings. And this kind of suggests that people are inherently open to giving a second chance. So that's even more of good news to everyone here. So if you didn't feel like the last person you met was a good impression, at least now you know how to do it. And there's more likely of a chance the second chance is given to you and you know how to correct it. One final note is that the mindset. Always remember that you are you, and if you don't have a good relationship with anyone, that is normal. And there is always a chance to recover from a bad one, and there's always chances in the future to make better first impressions. So that's all I have to say for today. Thank you for listening to this episode, and it means a lot to me. If you're still here, please subscribe to the podcast, share it with others who can benefit from this episode and who needs to listen to this advice. Show it around, show your friends, family, and follow the socials that are listed. So the Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok and Twitter. Make sure to check out the previous content and stay tuned for the future. And once again, this is the All Facts Podcast. I'm Harsakar, and I'm out.